Good afternoon, everyone.
All right, I think all are present who are needed. Madam Clerk, are we ready? We are.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Terrific. Then we will resume the City Council's successor agency to the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency and Housing Authority meeting for December 16th, 2021. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Here.
Councilmember Jonathan.
Present.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Here.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Present.
Mayor Kelly.
Here.
All members are present. We have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Savvy Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Please stand and join me in honoring our great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we reach the conclusion of 2021, I invite us to pause and to give thanks for the great privilege of serving our community in our respective capacities. We are thankful for all of those with whom we serve. Certainly our first responders who are so vital to the life of our community, to our city staff, many of whom perform heroic acts for the sakes of our residents outside their view. And most certainly for the many volunteers who serve on our Palm Desert committees and commissions, through the Citizens on Patrol, and in countless other capacities through the nonprofits that are a vital part of our community's framework. May we be inspired by our gratitude for all of this service, and may it continue to prompt our collaborations in the year to come. Thank you. Our sole item under, do we have any action to report from closed session?
There were no reportable actions taken. Thank you.
Okay. Our sole item under awards, presentations, and appointments is the annual reorganization of the City Council. We have a report which reminds us that we have thoughtfully adopted procedures that help us to identify our mayor and mayor pro tem rotations. So at this time, it would either be in order to make a nomination or to move a slate with candidates for both positions.
Well, that silence is deafening. So in that it is, let me do the appropriate thing as set forth in that report that you discussed. And that would be to move the mayor pro tem to mayor position and council member Savvy Jonathan to mayor pro tem.
I will second the motion.
Very well. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilmember Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nistandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Aye.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Motion is approved unanimously.
So I will pass that title and the gavel to my colleague Jan Harnick for the rest of the meeting and the year to come.
Thank you so much. And I would ask that if you would like to provide some comments as outgoing mayor, we would appreciate and welcome them.
But of course, I really want to take a moment to embellish upon those thank yous that I expressed in our invocation. There are 4 groups who definitely warrant an extra word of gratitude. The first is most assuredly our staff. This has been a year of unprecedented change and challenge. And I think that's true even for staff who were part of the Palm Desert team in 2008. And I truly want to commend our staff for their flexibility and for their commitment to our residents, and certainly to their help across the board for me in my time as mayor. Many of our community volunteers who serve on committees and commissions also do so out of public eye without notice. They're a vital part of what this council does. As mayor, I've become acquainted with more of their work, and I want to commend them and encourage them to share their experiences with others so that more folks might have an opportunity to participate in that way. Our city has a great tradition of treating the mayor pro tem position as more than just a mayor in waiting or someone who's available to attend events that the mayor is not available to attend. And I certainly thank my colleague Gina Nistandi, who was mayor before me, for involving me so fully in the processes of leadership when I was mayor pro tem. That gave me a great model to follow, as I fully included my colleague Jan Harnick in everything I did as mayor. And thank you, Jan, for being such a superb collaborator. I was quite blessed and privileged to serve with a mayor pro tem who had the kind of past experience that you brought to our discussions. And lastly, but certainly not the least, I just want to thank all of my colleagues in the stresses and strains of this year. I think we've done a darn good job of listening to each other and trying to collectively find our way to good outcomes. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, and as always, eloquent and from the heart, and thank you so much. So we'll move now to the incoming mayor pro tem.
Oh, that's me. Just very briefly, I want to express my gratitude for the opportunity to work with amazing colleagues on this city council. We, in a helpful way, sometimes disagree on how to get to a certain goal, but we almost generally always agree on the most important goals for this city, which is the welfare of our residents and businesses and making Palm Desert even better than what it already is. And I appreciate working with my colleagues. And I also very, very much appreciate the amazing staff that we have, very dedicated, very professional, and they often and regularly go above and beyond the call of duty. So thank you. It's a real privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have some comments, and I first, of course, want to thank Mayor Kelly for her sincere and diligent effort to always bring a tone of civility and understanding to this council. And it's meant so much, and I really appreciate what you've given to all of us so that we can work together better and move forward in a better way. So this has been an interesting year, as we all know, interesting couple years. And I just want to, I'm going to bring up a resolution that we passed. And I believe, Sabby, you were mayor at the time. It was February 8th, 2018. And I want to read a little bit of it because it's a great reminder who we are. And I want to say this, I'm reading from, it's just a piece of paper, but so is the Constitution. And our actions are important on this. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it. The city of Palm Desert wants to reassure its residents and visitors that Palm Desert is a place that welcomes people of all backgrounds and cultures, celebrating diversity and inclusion. Palm Desert values all members of our community, including but not limited to all religions, ancestries, and ethnicities, as well as people of any disability, gender, sexual orientation, immigration status, or gender identity. And it goes on to say, we will not tolerate any prejudice, racism, bigotry, hatred, bullying of any sort. We reject any attempt to intimidate, threaten, or otherwise marginalize members of our community. And it goes on, and I encourage anybody to go on to our website to read it because it's important and it's very meaningful and it speaks very clearly of Palm Desert and the community that it is. So this has been an amazing year. We've learned a lot. We've had the opportunity, I believe, to reflect, to evaluate, to prioritize. And as a community, I think we've really learned the value of coming together. We know that kindness and respect is the best route to success, and that really coming to understand each other. So as a council, we had important decisions to make and were and are fortunate that previous council set policies that put us in the position to do the best work for our community. Because of the prudent fiscal policies in place and previous decisions made some decades ago, we were able to use reserve funds to keep our businesses in great shape, to put food on our community members' tables, and to keep our community members in their homes. The previous council's decisions created a community that naturally unites to serve each other. This shows us that every decision, policy, and vote we make is important. When we look at policies and decisions, we need to ask, what does that look like? How will it impact us in 10 years or more and for generations to come? Because we've seen how important that is in what's happened in the last couple of years. So while we have important work to do for our community, making sure there are financial reserves, that there is education and good jobs, recreation and health, safe streets and beautiful parks, and of course, safety and security, we must understand how our actions and policies impact today and certainly tomorrow. So in this year that I have the honor and the privilege to serve as mayor, let's begin with kindness, respect, and vision as our foundation. Now let's get to work and do the people's business. So we will move to the mayor and council member reports and requests for action. This is an opportunity for our colleagues to provide brief overviews of their actions and activities and those things that will impact our community and share that with our community members. So Councilmember Nestandi, can you go?
Well, I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the former Mayor Kathleen Kelly. I really enjoyed serving under you and being the mayor, how you brought all of us together. When we would be going back and forth, you could find clarity and common ground for all of us. So I just want to thank you for all you've done. And I look forward to now having Mayor Harnick as our mayor again. When I was first on council, you were mayor, and here you are again, and I look forward to working with you. And those are my comments. And now we have Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, not to be forgotten. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Next, Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you very much, Mayor Harnick. I will follow my peers' lead and give my deepest gratitude to former Mayor Kelly. I can't imagine a more nurturing mayor to have come and started service with, so that I can get your understanding and compassion in your way of leading. So that was great and exemplary tutelage. I have just a few updates in terms of the committees. So the now Cultural Arts Committee, the committee members are still pending on the update on whether they will be reinstated to be commissioners versus just committee members. They continue to advance the discussion about the second roundabout and reaching out to the artist to ensure that that sculpture is placed in the second roundabout. This week, I also did a ride along with Deputy Nelson. And so that was very interesting to get an in-depth look of what it takes to keep our city safe, particularly in District 1, and then checking out different parts of the city. So I look forward to other ride-alongs to learn the needs there. I did a ride-along with Parks and Rec and have a forthcoming one to look at some of our hiking trails to get an in-depth need of or analysis of what our residents are facing, not just my usual stomps. I received a word today that Cal Cities has selected me to be on the Environmental Quality Policy Commission. So I'm very honored to be able to serve and represent our region with a subject that I am very passionate about. And last week, completely unrelated, while I was walking home, I wanted to report that staff was extremely quick and responsive to some things that I alerted on the City of Palm Desert app. So just a reminder to our residents, it is a great way to communicate and let us know you are the first line of eyes and ears sometimes. So staff was super fast, super responsive. So my gratitude to them and to all of our residents that are out there. Healthiest wishes for your holidays, whatever you may celebrate. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Boy, this is awkward sounding right now. Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody for your encouraging remarks. I'll try to live up to the estimation you have of me. I will report that Cal Cities has also appointed me to one of the policy committees. It's government transparency and labor relations. And for members of the public listening, Cal Cities is the major collaborative entity that cities use for training and for advocacy in Sacramento. So its policy committees help to determine what positions will be on legislative issues and discuss topics of common concern to cities. So this participation really is vital to all those things that happen outside our city in particular that have a large impact. I have one question about a past request for action. 3 of us had joined in a request to at some point discuss on an agenda whether we as a council want to place a ballot initiative on the ballot that would give our residents the opportunity to either keep our current voting system or to shift to a 5-district system. And we had previously asked the city attorney to go back to council who had sued the city in a California Voting Rights Act case to see if the settlement in that case could be amended potentially to drop ranked choice voting in the event that such a ballot initiative was adopted by the city are thinking in that proposal being that it'd be a bit much for the electorate to have to deal with both at the same time. So I do want to ask Mr. Hargraves if there's any report on those discussions.
Yeah, the proposal was presented to plaintiff's attorney through our special counsel, and the word came back that they were not interested in amending the settlement agreement in that regard. So that's the answer we got.
That's disappointing, but if that's the answer we got, then I would ask that we resume our process and put this issue on our next council meeting for discussion to see if we want to move forward with that ballot initiative. That's all I have.
Well, thank you. Next, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor Harnick. I see Councilmember Quintanilla's hand is up, and I didn't want to, if you had a comment to make relevant, I didn't want to preempt you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan. Given the very unique situation, I'm going to be very cautious in even responding, but I have concerns with whether the accuracy of what was represented is where things truly stand. So I have questions on that, and that's all I can say.
And actually, it's sufficient because we'll have it on the agenda and we'll have an opportunity to speak on an agendized item. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm sorry.
If Councilmember Quintanilla is questioning the status of those negotiations, perhaps I could just request of Mr. Hargraves that he achieve some clarification before this comes back to us.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, just to finish up on that point, it might be a good idea to bring the litigation subcommittee back together before the next closed session meeting. And since this is a legal matter, to address it in closed session. So that's a suggestion there. So as far as comments, I too want to get in line to thank our outgoing mayor. Councilmember Kathleen Kelly did an admirable job. I think keeping us pointed in the same direction is sometimes like herding cats. So without absolutely any authorization to do so, I'd like to award you the Outstanding Cat Herder of the Year award. Congratulations. And in all seriousness, you did a fabulous job, and our council in our city couldn't have been in better hands this past year. Thank you for your leadership. And at the same time, I've had the privilege of serving under Mayor Harnick before, and I have full confidence that we will continue in that same vein with admirable leadership. And I wish you good luck and Godspeed, Mayor Harnick. As far as any items to report, there's really no significant action that came out of the committee and commission meetings that I attended, and I have no request for action. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I have a few things. It's been a while since we've been together. I mean, there's been Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone's was joyful and healthy, and Hanukkah, and now we're moving towards some other holidays right in front of us. So I hope they all are joyous, healthy, and meaningful. I did attend Shop with a Cop, which is one of those great community events that to this day, I still get tears in my eyes when I see it. When you see our families with our sheriffs and what joy that brings to them and building those healthy relationships, it really is outstanding. I also got to attend the opening of an extension of Olive Crest, which is a wonderful community asset and really something that we need in our community and really makes us stronger. So we're seeing lots of new businesses, and it's great to see, and it's great to see all the flourishing on whether it's over at the shops at Palm Desert or formerly known as the mall or on El Paseo or down in over near Cook. It's just great to see so much going on. So that's all I have. And I want to thank everybody for their comments. So we'll now move to the non-agenda public
Mayor
comment.
Pro Tem, Mayor Harnick, can I make one last request I omitted from my post-it?
Oh, certainly.
Thank you. It has been in the news recently that in the city of Palm Desert, there was a nursing home that for several reasons, the state had to come in and intervene. It was on the news and very noteworthy that the staff, even though they were no longer getting paid out of their own pockets, paid for a holiday dinner in November. And I was wondering if that is something that we could request and see if there are still residents that have not moved because they had a January deadline, if there is any way that we could support with any holiday meals in the spirit of uniting Palm Desert and supporting our neediest residents. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll follow up on that. And from there, now we'll go to non-agenda public comments. And Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
At this time, I do not see any members attending the meeting on the attendee list with their hands raised. I will read for those that are on Zoom. If you would like to make public comment, click on the raise hand button on your screen or smartphone. If calling in using only the phone line, press *9 to raise your hand to speak. When called upon, press *6 for your line to unmute your line. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes and state your first and last name for the record. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
And I still see that there are no raised hands at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the consent calendar. And as we all know, these are matters listed that are considered to be routine and they may be approved by 1-minute motion. Are there any items that anyone would like to pull from the consent calendar for further discussion?
I do, Madam Mayor.
Please.
And I have 3, but I promise I'll be brief.
Okay.
Numbers 9, 21, and 24.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to move the balance.
A second.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second.
Great. Can we have a roll call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nistandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick,
Yes,
motion passes.
thank you. Okay, we'll now go to those items that we pulled. And I'm not seeing that on the agenda. Have we moved that to another place or do we just not put it on now? Okay, well, we're just going to go, we'll pull number 9.
Thank you. Just a brief comment. So, this has to do with,
This is the, I'll just read it real quick. Request for approval of a side letter amending memorandum of understanding between the city of Palm Desert and the Palm Desert Employee Organization, including a cost of living adjustment of 3% effective July 1st, 2021. Would you like the Human Resources Manager to address this?
no, I just have a brief comment, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay, so I would preface the remark by saying, first of all, I very, very much value our staff and the hard work and the dedication, the passion that they put into their work. I also absolutely recognize the need to present a compensation package that attracts and retains the best and the brightest. Having said that, there's always a limit and there's always a line. And one of my concerns is that a typical tenure employee qualifies for 52 paid days off. That's 52 paid days off. That's almost 3 months of paid time off. And while I support the item that's in front of us, I think we need to be cognizant that at some point it's prudent to draw that line in the sand. And so I just wanted to make that comment, make that observation. And with that, I'm prepared to move approval of item 9.
Thank you. One
Second,
second.
Do we have-
Councilmember Kelly second, with a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Great, thank you. Can we have a vote, please?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
yes.
Councilmember Nistandi,
Yes,
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. We will now go to item number 21. And I see we have Ms. Mager here. And item number 21 is the request for consideration to approve a monthly small business market on San Pablo.
Thank you. And Mayor, I'm not opposed to this matter, but I just have a few questions that I think require clarification. This is the consideration of a $5,000 payment or grant to Duchess Sanchez, owner of Thriftology on San Pablo. And I'm wondering, are we subsidizing a private business, or is this more like a nonprofit kind of community event? I want to understand that distinction.
Yes, Council or Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan. It is Duchess Sanchez is the owner of Thriftology. She has put together a monthly market for small businesses that she currently holds in her parking lot. She would like to expand it out to the street, as she has been getting a number of requests from other small businesses. So the $5,000 would help with putting together the street closures to have the market expand, to help the additional small businesses that are looking for a space to utilize as an opportunity to promote their products and their services.
Okay. I didn't understand the answer in terms of my question. Is this a private for-profit activity that we are proposing to subsidize? Or, for example, does she charge a fee? Does she collect revenue? What exactly will the $5,000 be used for? Are we subsidizing a private for-profit event is the question.
Understood. She will be accepting fees from the businesses. She does a small fee of about $30 that will help continue to offset the costs of street closures and traffic signs that need to be done. This will start the portion, but obviously will not cover the entire cost of the event.
Okay, I'll note that I've not seen a budget. We haven't presented with the total cost, the operating revenue, the operating expenses, and whether or not a subsidy is warranted. So I'll just note that, because normally we get that kind of information. And the other question is that we have heard about complaints. We've heard complaints about closing down San Pablo. And here I'm seeing that staff is suggesting that we do so again. Aren't we revisiting a problem that we just resolved by moving one event off of that part of San Pablo over by the chamber? And now I guess my concern is, are we repeating that mistake?
Yes, sir. So there are two differences between these. That was a weekly market. This is a once a month. We did make note to the business owner, to Ms. Sanchez, about the issues that arose the last time that we closed down San Pablo. We suggested to her that she reach out to each of her neighbors. So there were 25 businesses on that list. She was able to reach out to 19 of those 25. 13 did give her the consensus that a Saturday morning market would be acceptable to them. 6 of them had stated an evening market. And then, of course, there were 5 that I do not see a response to. So we did suggest to her, obviously, to do the due diligence of reaching out to her neighbors, to be neighborly, to see if there was a date or time that would be acceptable. And it seems more than half of the street at this point was fine with a Saturday morning once a month.
All right. So, Mayor, if it's not problematical, my suggestion, and I might be alone here, is that we postpone this matter till our next meeting. I'd like to see a proposed budget so we understand what revenues come in, what go out, and whether in fact it's necessary to subsidize the event. Without seeing that, for all we know, there's a profit and we're just adding to the profit. And number two, when we changed the location of the market, it was chiefly because of complaints from, as I recall, just one business owner. And so if one is enough, we need to understand how many truly understand that this is coming around and ensure that we're not making those businesses unhappy. So I would suggest, and again, it might be the only one, that we just postpone the matter and get answers to those two issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I see two hands up. Councilmember Kelly.
I appreciate the issues that have been raised. I would prefer to see us approve this and request further information along the lines that has been requested. It's a small amount to achieve a significant benefit for our small businesses and for the sense of place and activity that we desire for San Pablo. So I'm concerned that delaying essentially prevents it from happening this season, because the intention is to offer this 4 times from January through April. So we're essentially looking at 4 offerings. I would like to see us approve it tonight, gain some experience, and request the further information that has been sought so that we can evaluate it moving forward.
Thank you. Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to chime in that I have spoken with Ms. Sanchez regarding this matter, and this had a lot of different ideas that came back to what Envision Palm Desert is about. And one part of that is helping to grow micro business, and the idea if we can find people that maybe have a great successful virtual business that can get out there in front of other customers. And one of the things that I requested from Ms. Major was that we have somebody from the city that can be there to answer questions about future permitting, the county kitchen permits. And so when people come and ask, what does it take to go from an online business to a brick and mortar, we are already able to help them. Instead of just saying we want to have economic development, this is helping the micro business. One of the expenses that was discussed was seeing how the reopening of San Pablo went. Having that ATM machine was a great nod that staff made sure was there. So making sure that an ATM machine would be available, because a lot of these businesses are cash based, in addition to helping support with some of the events. So I did see that there is in the public comments that came in via email that one Mr. Chavira from the ABC Coin Laundry said that, he has seen the both sides of it, and he would be comfortable with a once a month market instead of the frequent once a week market. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nastandi.
Well, it seems like we're actually taking a vote here, because I'm counting, or I'm listening to comments, and it seems like we could have a majority. I do want to pass this this evening, and for the reasons my colleagues have stated, and also the whole reason, not the whole reason, but one of the main reasons we redeveloped San Pablo was to have outdoor gathering in Census space. So I think this would be a good measure to practice what the intent of Envision San Pablo is all about.
Okay, thank you. Is there, I see many hands. Councilmember Kelly.
Yes, I will move to approve the item with the request that staff do seek the kind of financial data that Councilmember Jonathan described to support our future decision making.
And I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I just have a couple comments. I just want to remind everyone that this was really just an asset to that street that we're looking at for a certain amount of money. And that's the issue here. So I agree that we would like to see a little bit more documentation of what we're spending for, what they are, and what that's going to look like. And I also see another hand up. So Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief comment. The comments that were made resonate with me. I absolutely support the project. I just think it's premature to fund a for-profit event without seeing a budget and understanding the numbers. So it's not that I oppose the project. I just think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I assume then, will we at our next meeting, will you be able to provide us with the documents that have been requested?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Nay.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nistandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion passes 4 yes, 1 no.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that puts us through the consent calendar, and we're going to move to a public hearing. And no,
Sorry.
no.
Mayor, I had a third and final item that I asked to be considered. That's
Oh,
number
you know what?
24.
Thank you. Thank you. That is the appropriate additional budget of $500,000 for construction contingency and design services related to President's Plaza East and West parking lot improvements, project number 758-14. And I see Mr. Bowman is on Zoom, so I'm sure he can help us with any questions.
Yeah, just a brief question, and I apologize, I caught it late, and I would have given you a heads up, but the recommendation in item 4 says appropriate $100,000 from the general fund. But the report itself at the very bottom of page 3 says that $100,000 will come from the capital project fund 400. So I'm trying to understand if the 100,000 is coming from the unobligated general fund or from capital project fund 400.
I'm going to ask if Janet can be elevated to answer that question.
Yeah, and again, I apologize. I
No
thrown
problem.
this at you and I just caught it late. My bad.
Thank you, Janet.
Okay, I believe what I heard is it says 100,000 from the unobligated general fund. And
It
then
says
on the-
that in the recommendation, but the staff report indicates the 100,000 is coming out of capital project fund 400.
Fund 400 is a general fund account. It is for capital improvements. So once it's appropriated to fund 400, it will come from that fund.
I did not know that we have a capital project fund that is part of our unobligated general fund. That seems.
It's not part of our unobligated general fund. It's the project, it's the fund that we put the projects in that are funded from the general fund. So if we, during the budget process, identify projects that we're going to fund from the general fund, we move the money and we place those projects in that fund. So by appropriating from the unobligated fund, you will actually transfer to the fund 400 where this project is.
So fund 400 is not already funded and therefore it does require transfer out of unobligated general funds. Okay.
Correct.
Then I'm not going to stand in the way, but I would note that this, as the staff report very ably identifies, it's just gone up so much. And now we're at a point where we're taking money out of general fund. I know staff is doing everything possible to kind of stem the bleeding, if you will, but I really, really, really hope that we don't have to raid the general fund any further. I know we all are. So with that, I'll move approval.
Second.
Thank you. And I'll make a comment. We all wish that it didn't go up at all, but of course we had a lot of surprises in that plaza and a lot of surprises in time through supply chain issues and all sorts of other things. So we'll all keep our fingers crossed that we get through this okay and we are able to provide for the community in the way we should. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Can we please have a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick,
Yes,
motion passes unanimously.
thank you. So now we'll go to the public hearing. And that is adopt resolution number 2021-74, making certain findings pursuant to government code sections 66000-66008 relating to the development impact fees annual report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2021. May we have a staff report, please? Janet Moore.
Thank you. This is an annual report that we are required to file with the legislative body with regard to what we did with our developer impact fees. You will see the report in your packet. It's for every single developer impact fee that we have, along with our capital improvement list. We do submit this report to the BIA and the DVBA, which is the Builders Industry Association and the Desert Valleys Builders Association. We received a response back from the DVBA in a positive and negative way. They do not have any comments. So thankfully, that is the second year in a row that we have not had comments on this report from them. So we want to appreciate their participation in this process. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, then we will open the public comment part of the public hearing. Are there any comments?
At this time, Madam Mayor, I do not see anyone raising their hand to speak.
Okay. Then I guess I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Unless there are any, is there any discussion on this item?
I will move
You're
the,
muted, Councilmember Kelly.
I will move the minute motion as proposed, as recommended.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move to the action calendar. We have agenda item number 28, information update regarding the census redistricting of council district boundaries as required by Government Code Section 21621. Okay, our city clerk. Can we have a report?
Thank you very much, Mayor Harnick. I did want to let the council know that we have hired a demographer, and tonight I am going to pass this on to Matthew Richardson. He is going to provide our staff report and information about our census redistricting coming up. So if I may, I'm going to pass this to Matthew Richardson.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. My name is Matthew Richardson. I'm a partner with Best and Krieger, and we will be serving as special counsel and demographer to the city for the census redistricting process. I'm going to share my screen. Just make sure I can do that. Norma, can I? Here we go. Bear with me here. Okay, so what we'll do tonight is just very briefly walk you through the basic requirements for census redistricting. These requirements are set by California law, specifically the Fair Maps Act, and they're governed by federal and state constitutions, federal and state statutes, including the Fair Maps Act. What we're going to do tonight is just walk you through the process for redistricting, for census redistricting, the timelines associated with that process, and give you a really quick introduction to redistricting, as well as next steps and the required hearings. I won't go through each of these steps. You can see them on the slide. Suffice it to say that there are a number of required hearings that the city must hold in order to perform census redistricting. Among those hearings will be map preparation. The council and residents will give their input. Will also give their draft maps. Our demographer will then go and draft those maps. We will bring those back to public hearings where they will be reviewed by the council and by the public. And that will result eventually in a final map that is approved after these required hearings. So you have, again, the 4 required hearings. At the 4th hearing, the council will introduce an ordinance that approves the final map. So I'm going to go through very, very quickly the basic law with regard to redistricting. I'm going to do it quickly because these laws really don't apply that directly to what the city is doing, primarily because of the city's the settlement that it entered into based on the CVRA litigation from several years ago. So we will be redistricting based on the requirements of that agreement. But generally speaking, as I mentioned before, both federal law and California law govern the redistricting process. Generally speaking, in most cities, districts have to be equal population. That is not the case here. Here we're dealing with basically a 20-80 split. You generally have to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act. This looks at things like language minorities and race minorities. The California criteria include things like geographic contiguity, the integrity of local neighborhoods. These are called communities of interest. The importance of having districts that are geographically compact. This avoids things like gerrymandering. Both the Fair Maps Act and the Federal Voting Rights Act look at future population growth, the need not to shift ideally where voters are voting from one election to another election. So these are criteria that apply, again, in most cities. They won't apply generally in this city because of our settlement agreement. So here you have the existing districts, the 2 districts, as they are drawn right now. There will be some requirement to redraw them, at least minimally, to ensure that we are consistent with the settlement agreement. So here you have the existing division boundaries and the numbers as they currently exist. You'll note District 1 right now is at 18.1% of total population. The requirement under the agreement is that it be at least 18.4% of population. And so there's going to have to be some change, some change to boundaries to ensure that we are compliant with the settlement agreement. On the bottom here is this note that ideal population of District 1 is 10,263.4. That would comply with the range of 18.4% to 21.6%. So again, the total deviation currently exceeds the range that's allowed in the agreement. And we have to, as part of this process, adjust the district boundaries for that population balance. And again, the population balance that is going to satisfy the settlement agreement is going to be very, very different than the population balance that is required by both the Federal Voting Rights Act and the Fair Maps Act. So these considerations, again, these are embedded in the Fair Maps Act, the Federal Voting Rights Act. They will have minimal application here, but I think it's important to at least know what they are. So both in federal law and state law, there's a requirement that districts have substantially equal population. That's a 1 person, 1 vote rule. So you can't have a district that has 80% of the population and then 4 districts with 5% each. That is not permissible under both federal and state law. Districts have to be geographically contiguous, and so you can't have a district that has an island separate from the rest of the district. They're supposed to be geographically compact. This avoids gerrymandering. And whether or not a city has complied with these criteria is measured objectively by the courts. So there's very little wiggle room here. One of the things that's really important in both federal and state law is recognition of communities of interest. These are things that are created by freeways and major roadways, natural and artificial barriers, flood canals or hills or mountain ranges, parks, schools, other landmarks. HOAs can create communities of interest. To the extent possible, when you're drawing new district lines, you want to consider and you want to respect these communities of interest. So if you can avoid breaking up a community of interest when you draw new district boundaries, you want to do that. It's more difficult when we're dealing with districts like we're dealing with here, where you only have 2 districts with a set percentage between them. But generally speaking, if we can redraw these lines and respect communities of interest, that's what we want to do. There are other boundaries that can be looked at and respected, and these are political boundaries. So for example, school attendance areas, right? If you can keep all of the attendees of a certain elementary school, the high school in the same district, that's optimal. If there are special districts like water districts, for example, if there are several water districts in the city, ideally all the constituents of one district all stay in one voting district. What we do not look at in communities of interest is incumbents' residences. We also do not and cannot look at political affiliation. So the process of redistricting cannot be driven in any way by politics. So the city council and staff and the citizens, as they're going through this process, have a number of options available to them. We can direct the consultant, that's our demographer, to prepare maps with the lowest population adjustment permitted. That would only be pushing 163 people from the large district to the smaller district. That would get us to 18.4%. The mid-range would transfer 983 people into the smaller district, and the maximum adjustment would be 1,800 people. So your range is 163 people to 1,803 people, and anything between that is going to be permissible under your settlement agreement. And so the council's job is to direct the consultant, that's myself, our demographer, generally speaking, to whether you're looking at the lowest population adjustment, the highest adjustment, or somewhere in the middle. So in doing this, we look to 4 general sources of information. One is demographic data. So our demographer is putting together detailed information that will give the council, that will give the residents an idea of the city's demographics post census. We're also looking to staff for their expertise. We're looking to the public from their input, and also out of the council for its input. So next step, we will prepare draft maps as directed by the council and by staff. The first public hearing will be conducted prior to the release of draft maps. That public hearing allows the community to give input on communities of interest, on those issues that are important to the community. And then at public hearing number 2, we will present the first look at the proposed maps and the adjustments that occur to create those proposed maps. So this is our final slide, just a look at the timeline and next steps. So the 16th, that's this evening. This is just informational. The first public hearing will be held on January 13th, as I mentioned before. This will be held prior to the release of any draft maps. This is a chance for the public to give their input on what these maps should look like, where the boundary lines should be changed, whether we're looking at the minimal number of people changing districts, the maximum, or somewhere in the middle. On the 20th, there's going to be an open house. This is not a public hearing, but an open house where there's a further chance for discussion and dialogue about the draft maps. And on the 27th, we will have our first review of the draft maps. So we will bring draft maps based on the input that we've received from the council and from staff and from the public at that first public hearing. The 11th of February is the deadline for consideration for draft maps to be considered at the third public hearing. Moving further into February, the 17th, we publish draft maps. 24th is that third public hearing. And then between that date and the 10th, we will prepare final maps based on the input that we receive from the council, from staff, and from the public. And the fourth public hearing is when the council will introduce the ordinance for first reading for the final maps. April 17th then is the deadline for second reading and to submit the draft map to the registrar. It's important to note that the council has final say over these maps. You certainly want to get the input from the community, but at the end of the day, it is council's say as to what these final maps look like. That concludes my presentation. Again, this is simply informational. There will be a lot more that goes into the public hearings, but wanted to give you an idea of what this process looks like. Again, it's going to look very different for Palm Desert than it will for most cities because of the settlement agreement, and actually results in a much more straightforward process. I'm available to answer any questions, and thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Richardson. Are there any questions or comments? Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mayor. My question will be in regards to the maps that are submitted. The last time this process was undertaken by the City of Palm Desert, I have heard residents submitted maps and have then asked the city in a public records request if those maps are still available because they would like to see maps that had been submitted. And unfortunately, one of the residents, actually former city council member, said he was unable to get that from the city. So I want to be sure, are maps that are submitted by members of the public and residents, are those considered documents that must be preserved? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. If those documents, if those maps are kept in the ordinary course of business by the city, then they are public records disclosable. So if the council would like staff to retain those, then they can certainly be retained by staff.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, Councilmember Kelly.
So the staff report says that you are looking or open to some direction from council this evening. Is that correct?
Yeah, so ideally, if the council would like to give us some input regarding the range, right? So we have at the absolute minimal 100 and some odd individuals transferring, at the max about 1,000. If you can give us an idea of what you're looking at in terms of that range, whether you're looking at the low end, the high end, or somewhere in the middle, that allows us then to go and begin the map drafting process with an idea of where the council is going. It's not vital for us to get that, but it would be ideal.
Well, here is what I would offer, which may influence where you land with that. The goal of the settlement agreement was to form a district, District 1, which would come as close as possible to being a minority-majority district within Palm Desert. Our demographics did not enable forming a minority-majority district, so the goal was to come as close as possible. It seems to me that it's paramount to preserve that intention and to let preservation of that intention drive the decision about low end versus high end of the spectrum.
Well said. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, I see none. So I assume you have heard the direction and we have received the report. So do we need, we do need a vote since we have provided direction.
Yes.
Oh, wait, I do see a hand. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we had progressed that far. I'm just wondering whether it's wise to prejudge the direction we want to go before we've received any public input. And I'm wondering, because I heard Mr. Firestein say that, or excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong box. Mr. Richardson say that it's not mandatory that we give direction as to high, low, middle. And might make sense to keep our options open and let the public speak up first.
Okay, I didn't hear high, low, middle direction.
I thought that's the direction being requested by Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, so we're looking for general direction. It might be high, low, middle. It might be exactly what we just heard in terms of preserving the intention of majority minority district. It really is council's discretion as to the direction that is given. We're just looking for general direction as to what to do as we begin putting together these draft maps.
Council Member Kelly.
Yes, I think Councilmember Jonathan's comment is right on the money. This is the very beginning of the process, so of course we do want to be informed by the totality of the process. So I would be content if it's timely to move that we receive the report. And adopt the comments made thus far as the extent of council's guidance, unless there are other comments to be added.
I will second that motion, Councilmember Kelly.
Okay,
I
we
have a comment
motion.
to add before we advance.
We have a motion and a second, and Councilmember Quintanilla has her hand up.
Thank you. My comment is it is not necessary to give a direction, but I think that part of what we do as leaders is to compromise. And I think there's nothing wrong with advancing direction to shoot for the middle. There's nothing that says that we can start going in that direction. And as we get feedback from residents, that can be adjusted. But I think that in the interest of how valuable the demographers' times are, how much they are in demand right now, that we can advance the dialogue by shooting for the middle of the road estimate.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We have Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank
Thank you
so
very
much.
much, Council.
Mayor, could we possibly take a 10-minute comfort break?
At your request, absolutely. Please take, we will be back here at 5:25. Thank you. Okay, it's 5:26. Is everybody available? We just need one more council member. Councilmember Nastandi, are you there in virtual reality? Thank you. Okay, so we are now moving to item number 29 of the agenda, request for direction on the selection of a pricing program for the lease purchase of turf equipment, approve a master lease purchase agreement for a term of 60 months, and authorize the city manager to execute a master equipment lease purchase agreement, parenthetically C42500, and then continued from November 18th, 2021 meeting. And that looks like Mr. Firestein.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for introducing this item. This is an item that was last considered by City Council in 2017 when it entered into a lease purchase agreement that will expire in October of 2022. The item that you're considering tonight is for the replacement of much of the equipment that was previously purchased through that lease purchase agreement. The staff report outlines the equipment and pricing options before City Council. This was on your November 18th agenda, but was postponed at the request of staff as the vendor could not commit to a guaranteed price due to volatility in the market. The staff report before you tonight provides some updates to that. The pricing will be locked in 90 days prior to delivery, and it grants additional authorization to the city manager to have some flexible pricing up to 5% of the purchase price that's identified in your staff report. There are various pricing options disclosed in the staff report tonight. Staff is recommending a lease purchase under the Kemper Sports pricing option and financed through the city's golf course capital fund. Derek White and I are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions? Well, that seems pretty easy. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Okay, next is item number 30, request for consideration of requests by the Bermuda Dunes Learning Center in Palm Desert for $900,000 from the city's child care facilities impact mitigation fee fund to fund necessary improvements to expand and operate a child care facility at 47549 Highway 74. And we have Mr. Seha giving the report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. This is a request to use $900,000 of the Child Care Facilities Impact Mitigation Fee. This is a fee that's collected on commercial and industrial development. It's put into a fund to fund new childcare centers and spaces within the city. We've been approached by Bermuda Dunes Learning Center, which has purchased a site at St. Margaret's Episcopal Church on Highway 74. There are some necessary improvements to the site that they've purchased to bring it up to code and to make it available to accommodate 150 students or spaces. The applicant, Bermuda Dunes Learning Center, I believe, is on the line. They can explain some of their operations, but they've been in operations in Bermuda Dunes for several decades. They're looking to expand into Palm Desert. And based on the Nexus study that was approved as part of this fee, it assumed about $6,000 per childcare space. So we've used that formula with the 150 spaces that would be created here to establish that there'd be a $900,000 use of these funds for Bermuda Dunes Learning Center. With that, Bermuda Dunes Learning Center is on the line, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, questions, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I have to say, I'm a big fan of the Bermuda Dunes Learning Center. So my question is one of process. We are, I think, once again, funding a private for-profit enterprise. And I want to make sure that in doing so and creating, as I understand it, 150 new childcare positions, is that compliant with our city policy and what we have done in the past?
It is. So this fee was established exactly for this purpose. The city council has approved it in previous years for similar types of improvements that expand childcare in the city.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is in terms of capacity. I'm very excited to hear that we will have the number of spaces. I always tell folks when they say we have people that don't want to work, I say we've got parents that don't know where they can safely leave their kids. So I'm very excited. This means that families will be able to enter the workforce with more stability. My question is also with that in hiring. How soon will you be ready to go? And if all goes well, how soon would you be able to accommodate those 150 students and families?
I'll ask that Gail Clark, the operator for Bermuda Dunes Learning Center, be able to answer that question. I know that they have purchased the site. They have some limited operations at the location now, but in terms of hiring, she's probably best to fill us in.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, everybody. The question is how soon could we hold 150 children? Okay, we opened the end of August. Mayor Harnick came out to visit at our opening. We have one classroom. We're serving about 14 to 15 preschool children right now. And then we have after school children coming from Washington Charter. The question with how soon, what the facility is missing, a lot of things is missing, but one of the things is the bathrooms. There's not enough toilets. It's before we can bring in 150 children, we got to do the construction. There's work that would be done. So we're trying to go slow so we do it properly. The school, it's a beautiful campus. The entrance is only 4 feet, the gate leading into the school. So it's not very secure in today's world. So we want to make it like an entry point, how most schools are, where you have to walk through a building to get into the building, to get onto the campus. So that will be one of the first things that we'll do. It needs playground equipment, it's got a lot of dirt and so forth. It's got a lot of ground. I shouldn't say a lot of dirt. It's got a lot of dirt. It's got a lot of potential. So I would like to say, I think by the end of 2022, I would like to say that we would have 150 children. If everything goes right as far as with contractors and getting everything done, I think that would be realistic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, any comments? Okay.
I'll move to approve.
And I wholeheartedly second.
Okay. And I do see, I appreciate with the OCA that it will protect you and the city for 20 years. And that's a very reassuring thing. So thank you so much. And those of you who may not know, Gail Clark has served the state in the capacity of helping other people and on committees to learn about childcare and set forth the best practices. So we're fortunate we have her in our community and helping us with such an important need. So we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. We will now move to item 31, request for consideration of the selection of a vendor for the lease purchase of electric golf and utility carts. Approve a lease purchase agreement for a term of 48 months approve a 48-month lease for GPS technology, and authorize the city manager to execute a lease purchase agreement and other documents. Mr. Firestein.
Thank you, Mayor. So this item was last considered by City Council in 2018 as an operating lease. Your staff report tonight outlines the bids received for a lease purchase agreement that is expected to commence in January 2023. Staff is recommending that council approve a lease purchase agreement with Club Car under a Kemper Sports pricing option and financed through the city's Golf Course Capital Fund. Derek White and I are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Well, I guess golf carts speak for themselves. I'll entertain a motion.
Just a quick comment. I thought I didn't have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick comment. I want to thank the staff at Kemper Sports because I'm familiar with other golf courses that are not able to procure carts, and they're in trouble because their current fleet is not working. The staff at Kemper, I know because I sat on the committee, I represent the city, has worked very hard to bring this about, and it's their hard work and their success is much appreciated. Prepared to move approval.
Great.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Council Member Kelly,
Yes.
Council Member Nastandi,
Yes.
Council Member Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will now go to 32, request for direction regarding a weekends farmers market, and that looks like Mr. Soul.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. You have before you a staff report requesting direction regarding council's disposition toward having a second farmers market in Palm Desert, specifically on the weekends. As an update, I want to let you know that after the staff report was submitted, the city received an application from a vendor seeking to create a new farmers market on Saturday mornings. This vendor is not seeking funding from the city. And although we don't yet know a specific location, the vendors indicated that they would like to conduct the market in a parking lot with high visibility off of Highway 111, which is consistent with what we've heard from other market folks, that visibility is a key component to farmers markets, attracting customers. So that's a location that's very important to them. If and when the TUP is granted, the market would most likely be up and running by February of 2022. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the staff report.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question, Thomas. Good evening. I know that COD's market will be returning on January 1st. Has there been any communication with them as to how our potential market may impact them? I know that these folks have been Palm Desert partners and community members for a long time, and I would hate to impede on their ability to have a healthy start after they've been shut down during the pandemic.
So the request that came in isn't a city farmers market. It's just an independent vendor that raised that question. And the impetus behind the staff report was to ask about how council feels about really working to find something to fill that, to add an additional farmers market to the city's lineup. So COD is planning to return in January, so that is definitely a consideration. We now have this other one that's considering another location, because part of our discussion has been about San Pablo as an event venue. And we had moved sort of beyond the south part of San Pablo where phase 1 was, and then looking at phase 2. So we have a lot of different kind of moving parts on the table. And I think you're correct in what I hear behind your question of thinking, how does each piece affect the other pieces?
Councilmember Kelly, please.
Yes. Moving pieces for sure. on the basis of the conversations you've had with this prospective vendor so far, do you think there is any prospect that they might want to collaborate with the COD site? Since their goal is visibility, a collaboration would obviously expose them to lots and lots and lots of shoppers who are coming to the COD site.
We have not had that conversation with them, nor do I know what the COD folks would have in mind with regards to that. That's certainly something that we have thought about in terms of a weekend farmers market, because we have an existing market that doesn't have a strong farmers market component to my understanding. I have to confess, I haven't been to the COD street fair, well, even pre-COVID in some time. So I'm speaking from a lack of knowledge, but it's certainly an interesting idea to explore if they were to expand that component. And then would that fulfill the concept of having a weekend farmers market? And I also want to point out that the existing farmers market, certified farmers market on Wednesdays, has raised a point strongly with the city that they feel a weekend market would would draw away their customers and maybe detract from their business. So I want to make sure that their point of view is represented as well.
Oops, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just realized that what I wanted to do is make a comment, so I will wait until the questions are done. Sorry.
Okay. Well, let's go to Councilmember Nastandi now.
Mayor, excuse me, I am a comment as well, so I will wait.
Okay, so Councilmember Quintanilla, question, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My other question would be, is since the time that we've last revisited, has there been more outreach to the vendors and folks along San Pablo to get more of their guidance? It seems that from the response that we saw in public comment from Mr. Chavira, it seems that, there may not be as much of a willingness to do something every weekend. So what has your findings been in reaching out with our business owners?
That's an excellent question, because we're actually looking at a different section of San Pablo that would not impact the businesses because of that very fact, being very cognizant of the idea, as was discussed earlier in this meeting, that depending on the day and the time of day and the closure of the street, that it impacted businesses. So after the success of the October 3rd San Pablo event, staff realized that made a good event location, depending on how it might affect COD. Students need to gain entrance to the campus. So with that in mind, and thinking in terms of it as a potential event venue, would that work? And what would the considerations be? And we found that after meeting internally with Public Works and planning, thinking that it would really, with very minimal changes that could be done on an event by event basis, that would make a good location if somebody were interested in locating there. What we found with the markets is they don't love that. They love the event space as an event space, but the lack of visibility is a concern. And so we've been really trying to think of how could we address that. I think it works well for a city type event, the type that we had there. And so I have a feeling we'll see some events down there in that location moving forward. Whether it works for a market or not, it doesn't seem to really resonate with the organizers of the existing markets that we've talked to for that purpose.
And I have one final question. Councilmember Nastandi, do you have another question, or is it still just a comment?
Comment.
Okay. Thank you. Just for knowledge, should other events want to pursue activities down on that new part of San Pablo, what is an estimated cost of bathrooms, for example? If we're going to have folks down there, we need to be sure that we can tend to their biological needs. So what would an expensive restrooms be for an event?
Well, one of the great things about that location is that there are already some existing bathrooms. So it really depends on the size of the event that they want. If it's going to be at night, there would be a cost for portable lighting. One of the big things we learned was that we need more lighting there. There are road closure costs, but we'll be able to easily work. If somebody has a proposed event, it would be pretty easy for us to work with them to work up a budget pretty quickly. I think we would welcome inquiries to utilizing that space because it seems ideally suited with the availability of parking, the low impact on businesses. It's accessible, and now with the bike lanes going there, and it just really, there's so many ideal elements to it. We'd be happy to work with anybody who was interested in holding an event there.
Thomas, can I just add to that answer briefly? Because I sit on the subcommittee for the Discover Palm Desert facility, I want to remind all of us that that project is in the works and will, that's a structure to accommodate a visitor center and a public meeting space, and will also contain a number of public restrooms as well.
That's great. And I would like to remind the council that here are the questions we're asked. Does council want staff to find a vendor to provide a weekend farmers market? Is there a specific location council would like that market to be located? And third, how involved does council want staff to be in running a farmers market? So I'd like us to be really focused on answering those questions. Councilmember Nastandi.
Yes, that's what I'm seeking to do. I, for one, say yes to a weekend farmers market, and it seems like Thomas has already been approached by a vendor that wants to do it. So I take that as great news, and I'm sure more details will be coming forthwith on how they're going to execute their farmers market. But I know for years now we wanted a weekend farmers market, and it seems like it might have just happened here. And the current farmers market, the certified farmers market, they have not been able to do a weekend market for us because they are already doing weekend events for other cities. So I'm not saying that certified farmers market isn't a good market, and I'm not trying to put them out of business, but if they can stand on their own on Wednesdays, great. But I don't want that to be the reason why we would say no to another vendor that wants a weekend market. And I would defer to that vendor. If they can find their own spot, as you say, Thomas, along Highway 111, great. And then thirdly, I don't believe we should waste too much of staff's time on this. Staff is very busy enough doing so many other things, and I defer that we need more of the private sector. So those are my comments to the three questions asked.
Well, thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I think we're addressing this issue because certified farmers markets are so darn cool and so popular and so good for our community. So the question in my mind is access. And a Wednesday morning market by a chamber doesn't provide access to our residents. If we look at, for example, location and compare it to San Pablo, for example, which is smack dab in the middle of a residential neighborhood where the residents can walk to a certified farmers market, and those are the residents we want to reach. So I don't have an absolute comment about where the location should be, but I think it needs to be based on creating access for our residents. I would say the same thing about the time. I understand the potential conflict with COD, although they're two different products, and we also have theaters and restaurants, and we all have a choice of where to go. So I'm not sure that that's a problem, but I think we need to be sensitive to that. On the other hand, most cities have their farmers market on a Saturday or Sunday because they want to provide access to the residents. If it's not going to be on Saturday or Sunday, okay, but then it should be, I think, on a weekday that starts at like 3 and goes until 8 or whatever, so that working people can go. We shouldn't deprive them of this opportunity. That's not fair. So I think in terms of the time, I understand the sensitivity to weekends, but we need to focus again on providing access. And so I think that kind of gives you some direction from my perspective on the questions that were posed as far as staff running it. No, we have smartly stayed away from staff putting on events and instead, outsource them. And I think we should continue to do that. And fortunately, there's a whole organized structure for certified farmers markets and based in Riverside. And there are qualified vendors that put them together, and they either get subsidized or not. This is an opportunity with a a permit application that says, we can try it out on the weekend without putting any money in, see how it goes. So maybe we give them a 6-month permit and see how it flies. And finally, I have to say this, I have some issues with our current provider, and I hope that as part of this issue, part of re-looking at the certified farmers market, that we go out for an RFP. Frankly, I think we're being underserved by the current vendor, and I think we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Quintanilla, I haven't made any comments. If it is okay with you, I'd like to make a couple and then we'll come right back to you. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to answer these questions really clearly. Does council want staff to find a vendor? No. If that's our, as Councilmember Nastandi said, they're busy. Now, they didn't go out and look for somebody, and yet they had somebody approach them. And I think that's great. Let the free market prevail and let it do its magic in our community. So I don't want to task our staff with another job. Is there a specific location? I think we heard clearly that Highway 111 is the preferred location for these markets. I do understand that our current Wednesday market, they're very happy with their location next to the chamber in Entrada del Paseo. And they've been serving our community well on Wednesdays. Having two doesn't hurt. So as long as they're happy where they are and they're doing well, yes, should we look at this all the time and make sure we're making the best decision for our community? Absolutely. Right now, they're happy where they are and they are serving our community well. And I want to say this, we do know that we have a large portion of working people, but as we looked at the census information that we got previously, we also have a very large community of retirees that will take advantage and enjoy that Wednesday market. So it's a little bit of something for everybody. And how involved council wants staff to be in running, well, council or Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan couldn't have answered that any better. It's not their job. We don't want them to do that. So now, Councilmember Quintanilla, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just offer a couple of different points of perspective. I agree staff should not be spending their time on running the market. I personally am a little bit more visual and would like to see some of the proposed areas so that if there's somewhere that we can have a document that said these ideas have minimal hesitation or minimal impact to businesses, if we can identify some areas where we can have a better idea of where we can encourage projects or dissuade them. I think in terms of making sure we have services accessible to residents, as long as whatever market isn't too close in proximity to another, I think there's that we can afford to give people options. My one thing or two things that I believe are being overlooked is that whichever partner that comes in, the market match continues to be an issue. So my understanding is that certified markets may not have the interest, the desire to go through the process and reporting to be a nonprofit in order to do the market match, which has been greatly beneficial to our community. And the other part is that by supporting the Wednesday market, we continue to be the home of education because the school districts across the valley actually come and utilize the Wednesday market because it's the only one that operates during the school day. And they have education partners. They bring the kids on buses. They give them some of the tokens. There's commerce. There's all kinds of different lessons that go into it. So by helping to protect the Wednesday market, we are also partners for children and education. Thank you.
Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. I will take up the 3 questions in reverse order. Sounds like everybody agrees we do not want staff to spend excessive time on this issue. We do not want them to become deeply involved in trying to micromanage farmers markets. Everybody's in agreement. Bullet point 2 is there a specific location we prefer? The difficulty from my perspective is if we specify a preferred location, we drag the staff into trying to find a provider who will agree to that location and lots of work to try to make that location work. There are pluses and minuses to every location. For example, most of the council disfavored putting a farmer's market at the mall, but lots of working people come to the mall on the weekend, so it would be a place to accomplish accessibility. To my way of thinking, the only way to keep from overburdening staff is to let the market forces dictate what happens. Let's deal with this potential vendor, others who might come forward, and find out from a business perspective what location they think works. So that tells me, in response to the top bullet point, we don't necessarily want to direct staff to find a vendor, but we want to be responsive to market conditions, pursue conversations with this vendor, and be as supportive as we can, bringing a proposal back to council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? And is there clear direction? Or can someone make a motion so that we can at least move from there?
I'm not sure we need a motion, right? Staff is asking for guidance. I don't know.
I believe that's correct. I think we've heard what you've each said.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that's good news. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We will now go to item number 33, which is adopting an urgency ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Desert, California, amending Chapter 25.34, Special Use Provisions, and adding Chapter 26.30, parenthetically, Urban Lot Splits of the City of Palm Desert Municipal Code relating to urban lot splits and 2-unit projects, and determining the ordinance to be exempt from CEQA. And that looks like it is Ms. Lua.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. It's great to be here before you and addressing you in this capacity. So thank you for the opportunity. Today, I bring before you an urgency ordinance, and it is direct response to SB 9. Senate Bill 9 was signed by Governor Newsom September 16, 2021. It is a statewide housing bill, which means that all cities within the state of California will be superseded with their local ordinances and have SB 9 adopted. It is a by right ministerial approval of urban lot splits and 2-unit projects. These two processes currently are not within our municipal code. It affects single-family residential zones, as you can see here in the map. It is a good portion of our city, with the exception of the PR zone. So if you see the PR zone, that is the tan area. The tan area has some zoning that has up to 22 units per acre. So SB 9 does not apply to those zonings. So we're going to have to go in through the PR zoning and really dissect those multifamily zoning ordinances and really just apply them to the lower densities that are for the single family homes. This law is effective January 1st, 2022. So this urgency ordinance is before you to get adopted so that the City of Palm Desert approves an ordinance instead of aligning with the state law. Just in some perspective, we have about 27,400 units that will be affected potentially by SB 9. As you can see, we have the R1, single family, residential, conventional family, the residential estates, the hillside plan residential, and the PR zone. So in highlights, the urban lot splits is no more than 2 parcels being split. So you can see the illustration. And this is just an illustration. So the lots necessarily do not have to be split in half. They can be split also vertically. But this is just an illustration to show you what that SB9 state law says. It is a 60-40% split for the resulting lots, no parcel less than 1,200 square feet, and the property owner has to live in the principal residence for a minimum of 3 years from the date of the approval. The other part of SB9 is actually the building side. The building maximum size is 800 square feet. So as you can see, that second unit would be 800 maximum. Rear and side setbacks to be 4 feet, limited parking requirements, and the state law also says that short-term rentals are prohibited. In essence, however, the ADU law also applies here. So with having one lot, this house here can have their own ADU, and the second parcel could also have their ADU. And so although it is a 2-unit project, there is allowances for more units to be within this lot split. So staff has been working with the city attorney's office to really create our own ordinance that really best fits our city and keeps the integrity of our communities. So although we can align with SB9, we are putting forth an urgency ordinance to be able to implement our own objective development standards. And that's really going to help us have some control of this ordinance, although we do have to align with the state law. I will say that there are very few areas that we can put forth objective standards, and in those areas we have. We plan to continue to work with the city attorney's office to really study the SB9 and the results of it from other cities. So where we think that we need to modify, we will be back before you to be able to make those proper adjustments. So right now, the urgency ordinance is really to create our own implementation of the urban lot splits and the 2-unit projects. However, this may not be the final ordinance that we will have in place for the remainder of our time. So with that, staff recommends an adoption of the urgency ordinance that's before you, 1373. It's establishing new objective development standards relative to the approvals of urban lot splits and 2-unit projects for these single-family zones. If you have any questions, I am here. I will try my best to really decipher the SB9 and give you some information on what it is that our ordinance that we're adopting really entails. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, I see a hand up. Councilmember Kelly.
Yeah, Ms. Law, I don't want to go deeply into the weeds. I just want to attempt to speak back to you what I think I've heard for the sake of the public and see if you can affirm or correct. What I think I have heard is that SB9 makes certain permissions mandatory for quite a range of circumstances for cities, but that if we adopt this emergency ordinance before January 1st of 2022, it will maximize our capacity to enforce objective development standards to the extent possible, to exercise some local discretion and judgment. Have I got that right?
That is correct. So SB9 does allow local governments to have some control. Now, as the city attorney may attest to this and staff, that local control is very minimal. However, we've used every facet that we could to be able to create these objective standards and make them be objective to our city and really preserve some of the items that are really important to us. And I can give you some examples.
It's
some
okay.
Okay.
I said no weeds, please.
Got it.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so staying with the big picture and staying out of the weeds.
Sure.
So as I understand it, by adopting these objective standards, we're still required to be in compliance with SB 9, meaning at the end of the day, we're still compelled to allow lot splits and create 2 units and potentially 2 units beyond that. So take a single family residence and all of a sudden there's 4 buildings on there. And as I recall, no requirements for garage. So you've got, I don't know how many more cars parking on the street. So we're still required to comply with the basic tenets of SB 9. The question is, what options do we have? I understand that there is a little bit of a revolt out there with cities being resistant to, once again, local control being eroded. Is there a pending challenge to SB 9? And if there are options, what are they? And are we hurting ourselves in any way by adopting this? For example, somebody can jump in January 1 and have this done. So I'm trying to understand if we have another way out.
So I will go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, if I may, in response to those questions, my understanding is there are movements afoot to address that. I think the League of Cities may be taking a lead on that, exploring options to roll some of that back maybe. We don't prejudice ourselves in any way by going forward at this point. We just, I mean, if we don't adopt anything, we don't have standards to enforce because we don't have anything in the code right now because our code wouldn't have allowed this. So if we don't adopt anything, we've got nothing. If we go ahead and adopt this, we've got what we feel is like the maximum amount of, restriction we can enforce at this point, given the narrow bands that the SB 9 allows us. And we are going to be watching what people do in other parts of the state. We've already come up with some ideas. This is an emergency ordinance to get something on the books January 1st, right? And then the idea is to come back subsequently with something a little more fleshed out, hopefully, so that we're not just totally bare on the first. Although, quite frankly, I don't anticipate there'll be a lot of appetite for these for lots of different reasons, but it'd be nice to have at least some standards in place.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, are there comments? Okay, Councilmember Kelly.
Well, this strikes me as a very simple must do for the reasons that Mr. R. Graves just explained. Prior to SB 9, these sorts of lot splits would not have been permitted in Palm Desert, so we don't have any standards for them in the face of SB 9. We need to get some standards on the book to the extent the law allows, and I'm comforted by the assurance that doing so will not prejudice us in any way. I do want to make a comment or two to put this in context, because the resistance of some cities to SB 9 has been understood by some as resistance to added housing. That is positively, absolutely not the case in Palm Desert. We've proven with our decisions in recent years that we have a commitment to creatively solving the housing crisis by encouraging a variety of forms of affordable housing by encouraging developments that have a variety of housing types at different price points. So it's clear to me from our actions as unanimous council that Palm Desert is committed to doing our part to increase housing and address the housing crisis. You might be interested to know that at a recent SCAG meeting, we received a very detailed study analyzing the expected impact of SB 9, which revealed it is unlikely to produce significant additional housing because it simply does not change the economics as to whether it makes sense for people to split lots and build extremely small abodes, which means that despite the mandatory permission, a whole lot's not likely to change. So resistance to SB 9 does not reflect lack of support for housing. It really reflects a sincere question as to whether it's a helpful approach or instead a harmful approach. In that full context, again, I come back to where I started. This is a must do.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur, and I'm prepared to support moving forward with the urgency ordinance, but I want to add to that by making it clear that this is yet one more assault by Sacramento on local control, and in this case, also on traditional neighborhoods. And Palm Desert strives to provide a wide array of housing, housing that is affordable, housing that is luxurious, housing that meets low income requirements, multi-unit housing, multi-residential, country clubs. And this is just Sacramento thinking that they know better than we do what's best for our city and, more importantly, our residents. So while we need to move forward with the urgency ordinance for the reasons stated by Councilmember Kelly, I think as part of that, we also need to ensure that our city continues to monitor opportunities to fight SB 9, whether that's being active with the league in their effort and or joining any lawsuits that either is a friend of the court or actively participating, because I do believe that SB 9 crosses the line. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Nastandi.
Yes, I too agree with my council members that have spoken that that we need to adopt the urgency ordinance right away to mitigate anything we can do against Sacramento's SB 9 legislation. And they're just putting a Band-Aid on the housing shortage. Even before the pandemic, before we've had this boom in real estate and housing shortage in California, it was bad before then. And mainly because of the practices and rules and regulations and red tape from Sacramento. They've created this housing shortage, and now they're trying to put a Band-Aid on it with SB 9, and I hope we fight it and look at some of the other reasons why builders and developers are having a hard time building housing that's affordable for the working and middle class.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, Councilmember Kelly.
I simply want to move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and if I may, I'll make some comments on it as well. There is a group that has a strong movement going to put something on the ballot in November to reverse this. So we should monitor that. At the same time, and coincidentally, and I found this I guess this is true irony, that the day that Assembly passed SB 9, it's the same day at our council meeting, we passed 270 affordable housing units. So to Councilmember Kelly's point, we are doing our effort. We're making a good effort. We're making sure that there is something for everybody. And Palm Desert has always done a great job at that. And we will continue to do a great job. But more than they didn't pay into Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan's point about parking. Well, now let's look at the other infrastructure that's impacted, that we're going to talk about water, electric, and all those other issues that these single family lots are not prepared for to accommodate that many units. So as we go forward and do what's best for our community and our community members, we can't let things like this get in our way, because I know we want to make sure that everyone has a place to live. So we will do that. So we have a motion and a second, and I think it's time for a roll call vote.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Okay, we'll now go to request for consideration to award a professional services agreement with Coldwell Banker Richard Ellis for real estate advisory services related to the shops at Palm Desert, formerly Westfield Palm Desert, located at 72-840 Highway 111. Mr. Seha, please.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, staff is making a request to enter into a professional services agreement with CBRE for real estate services as it relates to the mall here in Palm Desert. As you're aware, the mall has gone into receivership. We've engaged CBRE for the past several months. They've helped us take a closer look at the property, take a look at easements, any rights the city may have as this goes through its process. CBRE originally proposed a three-phase process. One was to do the tasks that they've already completed in looking at the property and providing a technical memo to the city. We're also asking that this contract be executed for $98,000 to execute phase 2 and 3, which is to start looking and meeting with the different property owners and tenants at the mall, get a better understanding of their operations, and then to also help us explore redevelopment options for the mall. We think this is an important topic that we keep our eye on the mall property and that we engage professional services to help us through this process. With that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Great. Are there any questions? It'll be, oh, there we go. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan, please.
Seeing no questions, I move for approval of staff request.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Harnick.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you so much. Okay, now we'll go to informational update. Receive and file report on the removal of Lupin Plaza temporary improvements.
Staff is asking that you receive and file this report. We just wanted to make mention that although we've had some direction to keep Lupin Plaza in its temporary configuration, we've been engaged with a number of the nearby businesses and property owners who desired that it be removed. We have removed those improvements as of last weekend. We still continue to work with MIG, however, to establish a permanent plaza, but this report is just to let you know that those improvements, the temporary improvements, have been removed.
Thank you very much. And I've heard lots of comments about the removal, and I look forward to the new design. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Seha? Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Jonathan.
Thank you. Super quick, Mr. Seha, what's the projected timeline for actually getting the permanent Lupine Plaza?
So I think we're about 16 months away. We're going to go through a significant public process right now We've already had one community meeting on the street at the Lupine Plaza location. We've met with our subcommittee once as well. I imagine going through this public process that we'll be back complete with that, select a couple of design options and bring that back to City Council either in March or April. We then have to go back out to bid and find a contractor to actually construct the improvements, complete the improvements, which is why I think it's about a 16-month process from now.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
And it was wonderful to see on the evening of Stroll on El Paseo how many people contributed comments to the future of Lupin Plaza and all the design offerings and ideas they had. Okay, are there any other questions or thoughts? Okay, thank you. That was a receive and file. Thank you. I did want to mention something before we move to city manager comments, and that is that Lieutenant Matt Martello is retiring. And he's been a great friend of the community, longtime member of our community, longtime lieutenant for our Riverside Sheriff. And really, if you ever had a question, if you ever needed help, he was always there. And he was a great asset. And I believe today might be his retirement date. So
Yes,
we'll
it is
miss
today.
him, and we certainly wish him the very, very best. And from there, I'll go to city manager comments.
Well, Mayor Harnick, that was a terrific transition that I can attest we did in practice. On the line tonight, I've asked Chris Willison, who is our new lieutenant, to join us and introduce himself. And Chris has been working with Andy Firestein and myself to get up to speed on the contract relatively quickly over the last week and a half, and comes to us with a very impressive resume, having served as the lieutenant in both Indian Wells and Rancho Mirage, and highly regarded by the sheriff's office. I wanted everyone to get a chance to meet Lieutenant Chris Willison.
Welcome.
Chris, you want to talk just a minute about your background and then take any questions and let everyone go?
Sure. City manager, assistant city manager, mayor, city council, thank you for having me. Chris Willison, lieutenant with the sheriff's department. Going to be extremely hard to fill Matt Martello's shoes, as we all know. You're right, today was the first day of official retirement for Matt, so we've been texting back and forth. He's so far loving every minute of it, but as you guys know, a long time resident of the city of Palm Desert, still a business owner there on El Paseo, and one of my long-term mentors as well. So severely missed, tons of knowledge, and wishing nothing but the best moving forward. As for myself, third tour back at Palm Desert Station. I served, had the pleasure of serving as your special enforcement team deputy sheriff for years before getting promoted. Came back to the station of our second tour as a supervisor. There I ran your business district teams and your special enforcement teams as well. Came back for the third tour, now over the city of Palm Desert, which is the last one on the map for me. Prior to that, I was over the city of Rancho Mirage, and prior to that, over the city of Indian Wells. So Palm Desert's second family to me. Extremely blessed and grateful to be part of your team, and looking forward to working with each and every one of you, learning new experiences and having a great time while doing it. So, with that, if you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Are there any questions or comments?
One comment, looking forward to the next ride along. Thank you.
As are we, Karina. Appreciate it.
Anyone else have any thoughts? And it was great to see you at Shop with the Cop. So thank you for being there the other day. Okay, so I see no unfinished business. So this meeting stands adjourned. Have amazing holidays. I hope they are healthy and meaningful. Thank you so much.
Healthiest wishes for the new year, everyone.
The City Council has adjourned the meeting at 6:25 p.m.